It's just going back to how we started. You just not, like I said, I used to do too much in-depth research, and just, but I think that's okay if you're starting off, not to be afraid of that. When I first started, somebody paid me to analyze one company for it was about 8 months. One company, that's it. 8 months, that's all I did, night and day. And of course, I was young and out of college and wanted to impress, so I worked extra hours. But that taught me, to really, I got to the point where I'd interviewed pretty much every customer. It's Nielsen Media Research, which was a ratings company that was being spun off at the time. I talked to every single customer that bought that service, and they had a competitor at that time called SRI Research that these same customers were funding. And, talking to the customers, I realized they said, this is not a real thing. This is just a negotiating ploy. Basically, it's worth our money to create a competitor which won't have legs to get better ratings. Basically more ratings for, more homes and force Nielsen to do that. So just really taking the time to understand a business and not being impulsive. Like I used to buy stocks if I saw an investment manager I admired by them. And, I'd get tunnel vision and just immediately buy it. And it was an impulse buy, And you start learning that really it's about 20% of an investment manager's holdings that create all the value. So your odds are already stacked against you. It's 1 in 5 that you're going to get it right on that investment. So, really taking the time to understand what you buy so you're in a position to understand, what you own and you can make decisions. And that's where, as far as like we talked about doing too much, if you really understand value, you make decisions and the decisions are a lot easier. You know when to buy, you know when it's cheap, when I knew everything about Nielsen, I knew so much, every time I'd read a news announcement, I'd laugh, if it was about, SRI, the new competitor is going to put them out of business. I said, no way, so by doing that in-depth knowledge and then, again, understanding a business from a customer perspective and not your own. And where this helped is, for example, when I first started analyzing Whole Foods market, the grocer, I thought it was an overpriced discretionary grocery store. That was my viewpoint because I shop the store once a month, maybe once every 2 months. And but I took the time to understand the customer viewpoint. So what I started is Whole Foods is a very decentralized business run in different regions. So each region runs. And I said, if I talk to each regional president and ask them, hey, what is the core customer of Whole Foods? Just help me, how would I go about answering that? And I approached them and talk to the West Coast, talk to East Coast, and you get a consistency of answers. And one, it was an educated consumer, and I was thinking to myself, wow, I only go once a month. What's that say about my education, Second, I learned that 20% of their customers made up over 80% of their sales. This is a shopper that did not shop at any grocery. They shop exclusively at Whole Foods. So with that, I went to stores, started talking to store managers. I wouldn't prompt them and say, hey, I hear 20% make it. I'd ask them the same question and see if I got a consistent answer. And then I'd ask them to just point out customers, like, who is a core shopper here? Is it that hippie? No, you're wrong. It's that lady with the little teacup poodle that's well-dressed. I said, well, I thought this was more organic hippie. And no, it's her. And I talked to her, why aren't you going to Safeway or Kroger? So I understood this business from their viewpoint. So we started buying Whole Foods at about $40 a share back in 2007. 2008 comes along, all the stocks drop, but Whole Foods drops to about $8 a share, way more than everything else. And what had happened is for the first time in 25 years, they had negative same-store sales. And so the analyst, Wall Street analyst, jumped on this and said, this is a overpriced discretionary grocery store, and we're entering a recession, maybe a depression, and since it's overpriced and discretionary, customers are going to abandon it in droves, and that's why the stock dropped more. We kept buying with conviction because we understood it from the customer perspective, and not my perspective, because my perspective was the same as Wall Street analysts, overpriced discretionary store, but by understanding from that customer perspective and that they would not abandon this company, I could buy with conviction. If not, then you're fooling yourself, and so I think that's very important. That's one of the most overlooked areas.